So what do the new KYP provisions require advisors to do? And the best way to consider this new requirement is by contrasting regulatory expectations before and after the client-focused reforms. Before the client-focused reforms, much of the reps' focus was centered on meeting the suitability requirements. And suitability is fundamentally a matching exercise that asks, is the KYC or the client's requirements such as risk tolerance, time horizon, investment objectives, are they aligned with the investments or portfolio characteristics? The client-focused reforms go beyond this matching exercise and ask the rep to understand the security she's recommending and the impact of the recommendation's fees on the client's portfolio, and consider a reasonable range of available alternatives. And in order to make a recommendation that is truly in the client's best interest. And let's not forget that under section 11.5 of CFR, the rep now needs to maintain records on how she met her KYP and suitability requirements.
To put this requirement into perspective, let's consider an example that assumes the advisor has approximately 35,000 investment funds available on her firm's shelf and needs to make 5 investment recommendations. To make a compliant recommendation, the advisor needs to assess product characteristics. Let's assume this involves 6 data points: asset class, product type, fees, risk, performance, and share class. When we do the math, we can see that the advisor needs to process 1 million data points every single day. This clearly is not humanly possible and can only be solved with technology.
Given the principle-based nature of the client-focused reforms, there's a high degree of ambiguity around the practical application of the advisor's obligations. When we polled the wealth management industry, we observed that nearly 75% had a challenge with the advisor's KYP and assessment of reasonably available alternatives. For example, what is the most effective and compliant manner in which an advisor should meet her KYP obligations, assess a reasonable range of available alternatives, and demonstrate she has accounted for this when recommending investments in the client's best interest? An advisor can confidently meet this regulatory challenge by using InvestorCOM's PeerCompare. PeerCompare creates a frictionless experience that empowers the advisor to go beyond a matching exercise and assess how a recommendation stacks up against reasonable range of alternatives based on a configurable peer group and comparison dimensions. So how does an advisor use PeerCompare? Let's join our advisor just after she's determined that a real estate fund recommendation is aligned with the client's needs and circumstances. At this point, she can check off the requirement that her recommendation is aligned with the client's KYC document. Now she needs to assess how the key aspects of her recommendation, namely cost, risk, and return, stacks up against available alternatives. Instead of sifting through a myriad of regulatory documents or conducting a side-by-side comparison, PeerCompare generates a peer group which is a subset of similar products available on her shelf. In our real estate fund example, if the advisor's recommended fund doesn't stack up well to its peers, she can change her selection to an alternative real estate fund that stacks up better among other suitable options. PeerCompare completes the advisor's workflow by integrating with the record-keeping engine. The advisor's recommendation, analysis of available alternatives, and accompanying advisor notes are tracked all centrally in our application. The solution also delivers and tracks all related disclosure documents to your investor. And all activities can be reported and tracked at the advisor, branch, or enterprise level.
Every firm has unique compliance challenges. Please contact us today for a conversation on how we can provide you with compliance pain relief.